Okay, awesome. Today we are talking about how to build an AI-friendly PRD. So first off, what is a PRD? It's a project requirement document. These have been around forever. It's nothing really new, but what's really interesting now is that with the power of AI, we can create these obviously a lot faster and be a lot more accurate. And it's one of the cool things that we can do as a team because we have essentially taken flip the structure a little bit now as far as like previously we used to spend 80% of a project just writing code and actually putting things building the thing, and maybe there's 10, 15, 20% of the project is like meeting with clients and shaping and getting clear and then just going and doing majority of the work. So what we found using the framing shaping process that we've been diving into with Ryan is that you can actually get a lot more work done in that kind of uphill piece of the framing and the shaping. It was really about half the project at least on that. And then you can use AI kind of on the downhill of the project. Okay, I think I've shared this before, but this idea of we've talked about framing a little bit. There's some shaping, which we'll get into more of that. There's a lot of resources from Ryan on that. And what we essentially are working to do is to have this continual process of going into framing, shaping, building, and then it's shipping. And I think about it like this, like the project really is start with the framing of kind of what is this thing even going to be and shaping. And this is it's not necessarily the bulk of the hours or the work. It's just the all the unknowns. It's in shape up, they call it the kind of the uphill piece of the project. It's just you don't really know where that top of the hill starts to peak. And then it's all after that, it gets really easy. And this can be helpful to continue to frame and shape and prototype. To me, this is doing quick little spike projects of, oh, we need to actually go in and make a little thing or test this AI OCR piece we were doing yesterday and just iterating like test. It's all happening as uphill things. We just don't know what we don't know. So you just pick on a thread and you keep pulling on that thread and okay, where is this going to go? How do we figure this out? And then once you get clarity, we'll do some more training on kind of more of the shaping piece. I think there's some mystery still there, but framing we talked about in a previous video. And once you get this clarity, that's where we want to create this kind of where this flag is. This is where we're going to create this, we call it the PRD. That's going to then go ahead and help build it. And we can, at this point, we're starting to take the project, put it into a task grid. We're taking the project, we're putting it into the AI friendly PRD, and then we're just going and executing on that project. And the way that I like to think about this, I'll start here at the top, get back to my notes so we don't get too off track, but it essentially creates this like single source of truth for us. So we can, once we've got everything and it's clear, then we just put it in to this document. We can go execute on this document. What it's going to look like is an actual file in Cursor. It's a .md markdown file that you'll have all this very specific sections in there. You'll have different tasks set up. And then we have this way for the AI to track what's worked on and what's not worked on. And I mentioned this a little bit, but why we're working on this is because it helps us create very precise executed things for the AI. So AI is your junior dev. It's going to run around and go do exactly what you say. But when we give it very vague things, it just starts taking a shotgun approach, just like randomly changing files. And that's where you're like, oh, AI is, this is the sort of epitome of the vibe code movement, right? We're not vibe coders here. And the anti-vibe coding trend. I haven't come up with a name for it yet, but we'll come up with something. And the idea is that you are going to get extremely precise. We get extremely clear with the client, what the requirements are and what the limitations are for this project. And then when you've done that and we have a very clear plan of attack and there's not a lot of unknowns there, we've ruled out anything that's, oh, this is fuzzy. I don't know how this little component's actually going to work. We've already ruled that out. We've already figured out some solutions and decisions. Put this PRD together and you can go have AI build the first kind of version 0.1 of this new feature. And so that's kind of how we're thinking about it. And it continues to kind of align everybody, of course, with the client, the project manager, you as the developer, and then, of course, our best part of the team is the AI. So they're really part of the team that is working. And it just helps us get something out quicker that we can see and play with and experience because that first version that we built may not have accounted for something. And so we can easily go back and then iterate on that. So getting that first thing out the door is really helpful. And then clients can see it. Everybody can react to it once it's real. It's hard to react to something when it's in a breadboard form or it's just in a prototype. And then the way I think about this is like I said, I've said this before, like the humans are us. We are going to own client communication. We're the experts at finding the root cause and digging in. Like it's this very almost like you're going to the founder therapy, I think is what Lucien called it. You're just essentially interviewing them, getting questions. Why is this a problem? Why do you feel this way? What friction is it causing? Why now? Is we're trying to get deep into like their problem and experience what they're trying to experience so we can be as helpful as possible. And then with that, we are taking that and then we're going to use AI on what it's good at, it's just the coding. But where we're not doing is getting this kind of vibe coders, because vibe coders generally is people just like sitting down and just noodling around, like, I think I'm going to add live streaming to my website and just put in a prompt and off it goes and just let it YOLO settings on cursor where just everything just is done for you. You may make very few decisions and then out comes like a cool app. And then there's this whole thing about it. So this is not what we're doing there. We're getting very specific because we're working in very a high level business operation type tools where these things need to be precise. We can't just make a change and then just it accidentally makes other changes in the app and breaks things. We want to be really precise. That's where the quality is going to come in. And that's where if we have someone who is an expert, they're going to oversee it and they're going to essentially be the senior dev. So I said, if you're a dev, any dev leveraging AI, you're now senior dev, right? You're now managing these junior devs and you're going to check on their work. You're not going to just let code go through the get shipped. And you're going to be really picky about it because you're trying to train them up and you care about the quality of what's going out. But it allows us to go a lot faster, obviously, and get the grunt work out of the way where we're not spending days doing something. We can spend a few hours building something and then spend more of that time helping the client understand how to use it, optimizing it, tweaking it, and getting it ready to ship. So we're essentially, again, helping create really crisp, specific tasks. It's not nothing vague about this, keeping it concrete, reviewing all the like commits, seeing what it is adding, and just if it gets stuck, obviously keeping it moving. I've taken our ShapeUp AI. There's now the way to create an AI PRD. So what I was going to do for you guys is do a little example here. First off, what it does is it essentially you give it a bunch of inputs. You can give it a task grid, you could give it the framing doc, you could give it a number of different pieces, but you want to give it as much context as possible. And then the GPT will return a little framing doc at the top to help give the AI some context, and then different sections and tasks. And so the important thing here is if you use the ShapeUp GPT, it's version 1 of your PRD. It's not the thing you're going to go and then now execute on. So I'm going to actually do this for you guys for a project that Lucien and I shaped up. So this migrating web app from Flutter.js, I'm probably not going to keep what we do in this demo, but it'll help prove the point. Because what's nice about this is already chopped the project into some sections here. And then from here, we're going to move it into cursor. So what I'm going to do just really quick is grab this. I'm just going to screenshot it and I'm just going to paste it in here and say, we want to say something like, write a AI. If you use that phrase, it's going to know what to do with that. And I'm also going to grab from FigJam here. This is not very precise because we didn't, at the end of it, a very long work session, we came up with very clear, concrete tasks. We actually didn't go back and do the problem statement, but I think I grabbed this one to give some like general context. So my windows are, let me just make this bigger because this screenshot's not going to be. So I'm just going to screenshot FigJam like that and jump in here. I'm just going to give both of those things as context. I'm using so what you can pick ShapeUp AI and then you can pick what model. I've seen some really good examples with O3. It does take a bit longer, but or O3 Pro. So these are, let's go ahead and try that out and see how it goes here. In the meantime, I will go ahead and get cursor up. I'm going to kind of show you guys how we would put this in. And there's the important thing here is that we are, again, getting a draft. This is not what we're going to go through and execute on at the end. We need to, because what does ShapeUp AI not have right now? It doesn't have the context of the entire code base. So after we're done with this, I'm going to put it into cursor. I'm going to take that ShapeUp and said, okay, now update this now that you have like context of the code base. And I want to see really specific things. Like I want to see that, oh, it's going to change this directory. It's going to add these files, because this is where you see AI go pretty wonky sometimes. Like it just all of a sudden decides to start creating like additional directories and a new routes file that doesn't need to be there. There's already a routes file, just need to add a new route inside. Like it gets very redundant fast because it's a little bit dumb. So let's see, it's pulled all these into tasks. Let's see what it did. And again, this is not, so I'm going to leave the bottom part off. And it is going to generate an MD file. So you can actually download this as an MD file right here. And you can't see them. I'm going to go to the repo, and I'm going to go, you guys can't see this, but in Tribe, I have a directory called instructions, and I'm just going to call it web2jscms.md. And I'm going to flip over now to cursor. And then I'm going to make this much, much bigger because you guys aren't going to be, there we go. Cool. So in cursor, we now have this like web2 CMS here. I'm going to make this, let's get some room here. Cool. Same doc and everything here. So I'm going to go in now and say, this is for Tribe. So it's easy. We can say, update this doc, and you can leave it in agent mode because we do want it to edit this. There is an ask mode here where you can just ask it questions about the code base, but we do actually want it to edit files. So I'm going to say, update this document now that you have context with, and you can say the code base like that. And we have this Tribe overview MD file. It's got a bunch of information. Make no code changes, only update the PRD. Everything's on max here, and we'll just fire that off. So what's cool about Cursor now is you actually can queue up other messages while you're working. So you can go ahead and say, is there anything else we can do to optimize? These are general things, and you can go ahead and queue that up. And it just sits in the task window down here. I don't know if you guys have played with this. And you can fire that when it's ready. You can have messages queued up, or I can delete them if needed. So I'm going to go through, let me just, there we go, clean that up and shrink this down a bit. This is the tiniest cursor window I've ever used because I'm normally on a much bigger screen. And then what we're also doing here is we're wanting to track like the difference of what is it identifying, because one thing that we have in here, which I already know is a problem, is we're saying a bunch of stuff about this. We have to build it things, notifications. So it doesn't know a lot of things. This is probably where this demo is going to break down really fast, because half the stuff has to be in Tribe Social mobile app, and some of it's going to be in the Tribe Social JavaScript repo. So there's 2 different repos going on. And I want to see, actually be curious to see how much it actually catches that. Because I think we said this is just simple, like migrating the site. So it can't do that. Obviously, that's nothing it can do for that. And now it's already come back with its first batch of edits. Let's see. So we would read through this. So this is, I don't want to rush this in a demo, but I want to just give you guys the workflow really quick. So what I'm going to do is, if I was really doing this, I would literally sit at the top here, okay, and read it word for word from top to bottom, be like, oh, that's wrong, or that's a mistake, or and then I could accept those changes and work my way through it. The goal is not to be like, this is everything in this document is what it's going to go execute on. So your job, should be really focused on, how do I make this absolutely as precise as possible and give it the most context possible. If I keep going down, let me just see. And I think, no, it's got this as a 3-week project. Okay, that's fine. I don't really mind. I like to think of, like, when it says a week, I like to think of it as an hour. So we're like what is it, Interstellar, right? Where the days take hours, or if you guys are familiar with that movie, that's what it feels like. So if you can get through an hour here, would probably be like at least a day, or a week of what it thinks. So I'm gonna keep going through. Is it working on it still? It's very jumpy. So we can go through each of these, and I can read like what's its approach. There's a lot of pieces here. And one thing is, it's already a little bit, so I would just say number each section so it's easier to find. And so we'll continue to iterate on this and build this document. So this should take time. Like this, I don't want to rush this, but I wanted to show you the workflow as far as plugging it into Cursor and then having it totally go through and update everything to make it better. And the other thing I will do is, I try to keep it around 200 to 300 lines. This doesn't need to be 1,000 lines. I think if you get into something where it's much, much larger, it just makes it very complicated to go and find things. Let me take this preview off here. And we've got, let's see here. So we've got this. I'm just skimming through. Okay, cool. At this point, you would finish it and then get this where you're happy with it, get it approved. I would create this on a new branch. And again, this whole thing with AI stuff, of course, is to hold it loosely. So I'm going to build this whole product like PRD. I'm going to fire it away on a brand new branch and just let it go and do all the things at once and test it. And then I may take the whole thing, just reset the branch and start it totally again. If I'm like, oh, that PRD didn't work, throw the whole thing out, edit it, reset the database quickly, get it back to 0, and then just build it again. Because it's not like we have to save all this work that it's done now. It ended up creating this whole other thing and I didn't need that and it's over. If it's too much, like, just reset the branch or start a new branch if you don't want to lose what you've worked on, and just iterate it again. So this is where once you finish this, I would start a brand new session. And every time you start one of these sections, so each section will have, let's say, 3 to 5 tasks. Each section at least should be on its own task. So your prompts would be something like, let's build this. And it should know based on the instructions here that it's going to just do one section, each of the tasks, update those, and it's going to stop at that point. And when you're done with that, you can save it. You can check the code just for that one section. Hopefully it's broken into little sections here. So this one was like, do a code split. So we have to create this and this. We have to do this. It's a pretty easy, because this is using our framework. Each thing starts with a verb. It's very clear that it's going to deploy this to all nodes and confirm that everything makes functional. So if we want that, we don't have to do that. I may have pulled this out. We don't need to deploy all this, right out the gate, but we could. This is a shippable piece if they wanted to. And then we start this kind of split thing building out. And also what's helpful is if I'm doing this as me right now, but Lucien and I were working on this together in great detail. So if we continued this together, we would have a lot of opinions on these different tasks, and we can say, okay, yeah, let's strike that, change it, move things around, whatever. And so you're building the plan for it and getting really specific. All this stuff that we're doing is clarity and just being extremely specific. That's what we're doing. We can't have things that are vague, because you're going to tell it to go execute on all these tasks. So just make sure that it is a task you need. And if not, delete it. Like, just if you don't think if it's over the top, sure. Do we need to optimize the Firebase queries to achieve less than 100 milliseconds late? Maybe. I don't know. That seems like a little bit over the top right out the gate. And anyway, we'll go through this, finish this, and you'll basically go through section by section. I would keep it all separated if you can in the branch. And then let's jump back to this. And here we go. Oops. Cool. And you could iterate here, but to me, this just gets like a nice first draft of the template going. So that's how we would go through that. And then we did through the demo. And then I just said, yeah, go through it slowly, best practices, new cursor session per section. And you'll continue that PRD, and it should be like a live PRD that updates the status. So you just should be like, okay, now do section 2. Okay, now do section 3. And you're committing each thing so you can roll back, because inevitably it may get 1 might be fine, 2 might be fine. It gets into 3, and then it just, crashes, or maybe the app hits a bunch of bugs or something. You want to make sure that, I like to make sure that the app still is working. So I'll have it running locally and I'll see what it's doing. Does the thing even load? Are we hitting compiling errors? What's going on? So that we're not like committing, okay, section 3's in here, but it totally broke everything. Because then if you do that and then now 4 starts to get built, you get further and further away from like a working version. So that's helpful. Just make sure that it passes tests and keep committing there to that branch. And then it said that dedicate branch. So that's pretty much it I wanted to cover. I went through it very quickly. The best thing is going to be for you guys to go through it in detail yourselves and just test it. You will build a level of trust with the AI on this, and it will get better and better. I do want to show one little bonus thing, which I've been experimenting with, which is Claude Code. I don't know if you guys are using this at all, but Claude Code, you can run it in any editor and you install it here. So I can get you guys a Claude Code Pro account if you want, but you just kick off a session like this, and we can say, yes, we trust that file. Now here's where it basically runs in the terminal. So if you love doing things in the terminal, this will be for you. And I can just link to this and say that, what did we call this? Web2. Here are my requirements. And then just see. Now, what this will do, what I like about it, I just want to give you guys a super quick high-level demo. Perfect. It's already overloading the API. Fantastic. So may have to be on a pro account. I noticed Claude was actually down this morning. Potentially that's what it is. But I did this the other day for another project, and it does this. It essentially creates like a little to-do list for yourself, and it starts to actually manage the project for you. And then you actually choose each task that you want to do. So it's going to do this one. It's going to be like, hey, I want to change these 3 lines. And you look at the 3 lines and you're like, yeah, that's good. Make that change. And it works. And it's cool. I want to make these 5 changes, or I want to add this new file. And you can step it through one. It's a little bit of more of a simple process. So this is actually going to run ahead and start doing this. This may not be the way to do this, but Claude Code is an interesting workflow. And you'd think it would be the same as for Sonnet Max here. It's actually quite a different workflow entirely. And this actually is independent of what's happening in the terminal. So I found for a new feature, I integrated a new framing functionality to the Novo dashboard. So you could eventually be able to have a conversation with Claude, and then Claude will actually create the framed grid with the different bullet points and stuff underneath that we could send to a client and then export that to Notion. So I was able to do that in about an hour using this process, and I built a little PRD for it and had it executed. And it actually worked right out the gate. I was very impressed. It does run out of like tokens and usage, you'll see depending on your account. So just experiment with it. If it try these different workflows and see what works for you. So that's everything I want to touch on for the PRD, and we'll just